So we kept our SKU selection or our product selection pretty simple, and it's almost like a when you go to In-N-Out Burger, their menu isn't it doesn't consist of 100 things. That's kind of like Gesture. We wanted to make it very seamless, frictionless, easy.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Ben Labra. He's the CEO and founder of Gesture. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. So Ben, why don't you start and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Definitely. So grew up in Denver, Colorado, up until about 13 years ago. A journey was interesting. I sort of not kind of the traditional journey of kind of going to middle school, high school, and then off to college. I had a little bit of a different sort of upbringing. I grew up with a single mom, not so great of a neighborhood in Denver, and then got into just doing crazy stuff at 16ish. I had a son at 16, so didn't really, again, just kind of go down that traditional path. But I think at that point, it really helped me and shape sort of into who I am. So at that, I went to go work for KFC, which was just basic fast food. Just knew that I had to kind of put some money on in my pocket and help support this new child that was on the way. And it again, I think things had shifted, and I was sort of recognized for leadership and management skills. And by the time I was 18, I had somebody who essentially helped me sort of acquire my own franchise restaurant. And so I basically, at 18, I owned my own KFC. And then by the time I was 19, I turned a profit on that one. And then I was able to go out and buy another one. So by the time I was 20, I had these sort of two KFCs that were under my belt. And it was cool. And then at that point, I kind of noticed or figured I didn't really want to do this for the rest of my life. And so I got out of that and sold out, did what I needed to do, and ended up going to school. And I'm pretty much like older than Google. I tell people that, and my daughter especially. And so that's when my daughter she was on the way by the time I was about 21. And then I ended up just kind of fast forwarding a little bit, went into finance, and from finance I went into higher ed. And in between all that time, I had always taken an interest in tech, and basically from living in Denver, so about, again, 13 years ago, I moved to New York. And then I was still in higher ed, but at that point I ended up going to business school. And then from there, I really just kind of started teaching myself around tech, built my first startup. It was kind of LinkedIn for high school students. Learned a lot of lessons there. And then I started to pretty much gain the idea for Gesture. So while I started to create Gesture, I decided to enroll in law school if that wasn't enough to put on my plate. And so, and that was raising a daughter as a single dad here in New York, put her through high school. And basically at that point, I decided to enroll in law school, enroll her into college at Albany, and start to build Gesture. And here we are. So I hope that was a decent enough introduction.
Yeah. No, it sounds like you've had a really interesting journey getting you to where you are now, CEO and founder. Tell me a little bit about Gesture.
Yeah, so Gesture started back in 2018 as honestly just a simple gifting company. It was sort of taking sort of like almost like a 1-800-Flowers concept and kind of like a wine.com type of concept, and figuring out how to localize it or sort of even Uberize it. And we really wanted to just provide the ability to send stuff in real time, especially those things that really have significant meaning to others. And then again, just provide the transparency when it comes to delivery and things along those lines. And so we launched Gesture as just, again, a simple gifting app. But the thing that sort of separated us was the fact that we built the logistics side as well. So we built the fleet, the software. So our process works almost the same way you would think Uber works, or even DoorDash, or Uber Eats. When you place an order on Gesture, about 90% of the time there's somebody out there that receives that notification. We tell them where to go pick up and where to drop off, and again, that provides just kind of this very fluid experience and
Wow.
seamless. Pretty cool.
And so how quick is the turnaround then?
Our record time, I think fastest delivery still to date, was myself, and I wasn't cheating either, is I think 11 minutes at one
What?
point. Yeah, and it was really funny. It was almost, I think it was about a month or two, as we were as after we launched, and I was the one out delivering,
Yeah.
just because we were building that sort of delivery fleet, and so orders would come in, and I was the first to go out and make it happen if we didn't have a runner. And so I was delivering one item, and I think it was like a bottle of wine or something, and someone placed an order, and it just so happened that I was like a block away. But that's how sophisticated our algorithms and our technology was, is that I think there were two or three of us that were in the city that day. It was able to pinpoint me, and found me, told me where to pick up, where to drop off. But I'll never forget that customer. I think her name was Jody, but she placed the order, and again, our stuff works just like anyone else's. Uber, like, when
Mhm.
the ride is on the way, ride is finished. So I picked it up, went and dropped it off to the recipient, and then marked it as complete. And and I remember somebody messaged us, I think it was on like the support line, and was like, how did you guys do that? It was really funny, but she was like, my God, I never just seen anything like that. Was so fast. And
Yeah.
yeah, but I was like, but it was actually really cool. So unfortunately, the larger we got, we were told that, because our mantra when we launched Gesture was 30, everything was $20, and it was 30 minutes. And so that's kind of our mantra. But obviously we had people that were like, yeah, it's not gonna last long. And I was like, yeah, we'll still be able to do it. Doesn't matter. And now that we're bigger, yeah, it doesn't really work too well, but we try. But yeah, that's basically kind of that how that started.
That's interesting. And you mentioned a bottle of wine. So what are some of the different things that people can gift?
Yeah, so we kept our SKU selection, or our product selection, pretty simple, and it's almost like when you go to In-N-Out Burger, their menu it doesn't consist of 100 things. That's kind of like Gesture. We wanted to make it very seamless, frictionless, easy. So it's some of the basic stuff, roses, a different, like a sort of a different bouquet of flowers, mixed bouquet, different types of very specific selected wines, and champagnes, just to kind of celebrate those congratulatory moments, or whatnot. But and then we've added some baked items, like sometimes you can you're able to do a cake online, or through Gesture. But again, we've sort of kind of went in and out over this next month, or I should say the rest of this year going into next. We're really going to expand, not a ton, but we're going to start getting into even sort of localized product selections, meaning that, like, we have a lot of jewelers who approached us that would love to sell their certain jewelry. So we're going to be a little more specific around that, but there's a lot of cool things that are essentially coming out of that will be added to the SKU selection in the near future.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah,
And
cool.
there are other gifting sites out there, boxes and so on. So what really separates Gesture from its competition?
Yeah, so I think, well, for one, um, I believe there's a ton of gifting. I do. One of the things that I know so far, we still kind of hold the sort of the reins on this, or the crown on this, is that we handle. We're not really a drop shipper. We don't do drop shipping. We handle the whole process from A to Z, almost the same way like Amazon does. If you order something through Amazon, there's a good chance that either well, you might get it through FedEx or UPS, but Amazon takes care of the entire process. And that's why you see those Amazon vans outside, because sometimes when you buy even specific things through Amazon, they handle the whole thing, and that's like Gesture. We have the logistics piece, we have a fleet, and it really helps control quality, control, just overall the experience. So it's really, really cool. But we're going to be adding, again, for that reason, what would also separate us is we're going to be doing some, because we control the logistics and we built that. One of the coolest things that's coming out is sort of real live, like live gifting, where you can actually see, and if you're a sender and you want to see what the maybe responses to somebody delivering, it's really cool. You're going to be able to do that on Gesture. So, and there's some other, really big things that Gesture is essentially doing, but without going into too much detail regarding behind the scenes, is that Gesture has been around for about 5 years, or going into about 5 years. And the more that you use the app as a consumer, and you send your stuff through Gesture, flowers, wine, all your basic, gifting needs, local gifting needs, we reward you on the back end by being chosen by, for your own gestures free. So that might be, you might be chosen by Delta for a free round trip ticket, or you might be, chosen by Mac, to receive a free, I don't know, just a new lip gloss set, something along those lines. So just, again, Gesture is sort of the app that just continues to, it's like an ecosystem. The more you give, the more that you're going to get on the back end. It's really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear, do you tend to see trends in who is gifting to other people?
Oh, a ton. So the data that we have, by the way, one of the things that I was very adamant about is not selling this consumer data, because we have a lot of it. And so with that, we hold that data sort of close to heart. And so we have done a lot with that. We can see days and times, who gifts, like we know a lot about our consumers, and which is very valuable to, again, other, brands and other companies, so we can connect those. But we really know a lot about, why, how people gift and who's gifting. And, we have something in there where you can write a personal message, and that gets delivered to the recipient once the gift is delivered. We can't read those messages, but we essentially data mine those messages for trends, and certain that we don't know who it's coming from or who wrote what. But it's really cool, because that really helps us with, one of the funniest and coolest things is the occasions on Gesture. So we have pretty much an occasion for anything. They're called tiles. In fact, you can actually break up with somebody on Gesture, believe it or not. You can send them dead roses and a box of tissues, and people pay $25 for that, believe it or not. It's pretty wild. But that's, we came out with that because of the data that we have, where we saw people were like, here's some roses, never call me again. I wish these were dead. And like, I'm like, there's a trend here. This is not just like a one-off. We took a look at that and said, we need to create a breakup category. So on Gesture, if you download the app, and when you download the app and take a look at it, there's a tile that's called the Sweet Goodbye, and it's sort of a crushed lollipop. And yeah, that's you can actually break up with someone. And we've been messaged on our support line, and through the app, asking if we could deliver other not so good things during a breakup. And of course we had to respectfully decline, but I mean, it's been interesting. So ultimately, overall, when you asked about data and do we know trends, and yes, we do. It's pretty much like that.
That's hysterical. What are some other, different things that you can find on Gesture?
So we're the only company that has your own personal sort of gifting handle, G handle. So just to kind of like there's two ways that we've seen. We've seen it used a multitude of different ways by like a lot of influencers who don't want to give out phone numbers, or like they don't want to have to create this sort of fictitious address. They can create you'll get a handle on Gesture and then give that to your audience, and your audience can send you stuff. So like we have some different types of influencers who use it, and an influencer went live one day and said, "Hey, I feel like champagne," and she or I think it was wine, one or the other, and she ended up getting like, I think it was like, I don't know, like 50 bottles of wine in like the first hour or something. Yeah, just so she didn't have to give up any address or anything, so because that information where it was delivered was private to her. But the other ways that like handles are cool is that we also help with sort of sometimes like even tragedies that have happened, like the LGBTQ sort of shooting in Colorado Springs at the nightclub, and we can create handles for those situations, and then we give those to media, to like news channels, and say, hey, if you want to support, send flowers to this handle, and then that person doesn't have to go out and look for the address, where did it happen. So we can essentially deliver, and then that's something called Gesture Cares initiative, but that's just one thing that is different. So there's that, and then the other thing that I think was cool is we had a couple who was getting married. This is, I think, a year and a half ago, maybe, and this is when handles first came out. They created a Gesture account. Their handle, I think, was like their last, both of their last names or something, and then they put their handle and then a small little QR code on their, I think it was either save the date or their wedding invitation, one or the other, and said, hey, like, we would love your support in champagne. You can send it right through Gesture, and download the app and use our handle. And so they ended up getting like 60 something bottles of champagne, and they used that champagne to fund their champagne budget for their wedding. So they were just like,
brilliant.
it was cool. Of course, they had 60 different types of bottles of champagne, but like they were like, this is the coolest thing. So those are sort of like different things that you can find that are, I think, really unique to Gesture. Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. Well, Ben, I think this has been a really fascinating conversation. I appreciate you diving into all of the different aspects of Gesture. Before we head out, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, whether it be advice, anything about Gesture, entrepreneurship, anything you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would probably say that is, if you have an idea, I think in kind of two different areas. If you have an idea, definitely pursue it. Figure out a way on how to build it. Don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Just you be the best at ultimately the idea that you want to build. And what I mean by that is, there was a couple times that I've tried to give Gesture away, like before it was even conceptualized or built, and nobody really wanted, and they're like, it's okay. But here we are, right? And so I think the cool thing is in all of that, I think it's you have to continue to innovate and stay on top of innovation and figuring out new ways on how to become better, cooler, faster. So innovation is a big part. I think Brian Chesky said it best with Airbnb. He said companies who fail to innovate will pretty much indefinitely fail in general. So I really took that to heart, and with that, that's a big sort of piece to growing, because technology desires all customer, everybody's moving quick, and so if you don't essentially take advantage of that or jump on that, and don't be afraid to launch what might not look all that great or pretty, because it's you can spend a ton of time making it look amazing and then nobody uses it, right? Versus you kind of create something that looks pretty cool and then you improve it over time. So think about what the first Tesla looked like versus what it looks like now, right? So it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, Ben, this has been a very insightful conversation. I appreciate the humor you brought to the episode. I think this was fantastic, and I really appreciate you being on Business Ninjas today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was very enjoyable. I appreciate it.
Great to have you.
Thanks.